All right, A-Day is complete. What do we know?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by TurboTax. We'll talk about TurboTax in just a bit. Want to thank you, everydayers, for being every day. Thank you, newbies, for being here today. And thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen every single day. And it looks like I have something like that's just a shadow. I don't know why that is like that on my nose. But anyway, Jimmy, you went to A-Day. Number one, just how was it?
It was a little chilly, frankly. That's the first thing. I don't remember.
That's the kind of groundbreaking stuff you get right here on Locked On Bama.
Well, I don't really. When you go, I mean, my initial reaction is I don't remember going to A-Day when it was that cold's not the right word, and I was in a shaded thing with a roof. I think if I was directly in the sun, it would have been a little different, but it was better than I thought it would be in terms of the entertainment factor for fans. I was completely prepared to watch nothing but what amounted to a normal Tuesday or Thursday practice from the practice fields. That's what I was assuming it would be. That's what I was expecting, and that's what I was okay with. They did a lot more 11-on-11 scrimmaging that looks like A-Day. They did a lot more of that than I assumed. I thought there'd be some, but it was quite a bit. I would go as much as half of the practice or a third of the practice was 11-on-11 full speedish stuff, very similar to what you would have seen in a regular A-Day. And that surprised me in terms of the format. The rest of it was a normal practice. I enjoyed watching the drills. When you're on one side of the field like I am, you know, in terms of what you can see really well is the stuff right in front of you. The defensive line was directly in front of me, so I watched them more than other positions. Though they did some great quarterbacks throwing to receivers covered by DB one-on-one. That was very entertaining, and I know they do that in practice. I think again they did more of it than they normally would because they knew that would be something entertaining. Quarterbacks throwing a ball to a receiver who's in man coverage with the DB. That was a great look at quarterbacks, wide receivers, and DBs, and that was a kind of an entertaining portion of it. But they punted some, they kicked some, and we got a pretty good look at the quarterbacks. And I think today, once again, with an exclamation point, like this is what the quarterback situation is, and that's that Ty Simpson is the number one quarterback with the number one offense, and he should be. And he's clearly, in my mind, and I can't emphasize enough, clearly in my mind, the best choice to be the starting quarterback for this football team right now. It's Ty Simpson. Austin Mack, I thought, looked talented but not ready. Too many turnovers, too many young player mistakes. I think, in my amateur opinion as a quarterback evaluator, it still moves a little quick for him. I mean, the game's moving a little fast for him, which is very typical of young quarterbacks. But Austin Mack's about to move into year 3, and it's time for him to catch up. But let me tell you, he did make some really impressive throws. And Keelan's physical tools are ridiculous. His arm strength is fantastic for a kid his size. Again, first snap that he made in front of the big crowd when they went to the scrimmage work, and they're like, okay, Keelan, you get in there, you have your chance. Boom, he throws an interception. And it wasn't a good interception either. It was one of those, oh, why did he throw that ball? Again, young. Ty had a good day, solid day, nothing spectacular, but he was solid. He did have one turnover in 7-on-7 work, picked off by Abdul Sanders, which might be a little bit of a surprise. But there were several standouts.
Ivan Taylor also had a pick. So that means 2 of the true freshmen had interceptions, right?
True. And there was probably a total of it depends on how you count them, right? There were interceptions in the one-on-one work. There was interceptions in 7-on-7, But in terms of the actual scrimmage work, there were probably 2 or 3, and most of it was Austin Mack. Again, another thing Austin Mack does, which is, again, he's young, right? So when he's not throwing interceptions and the game's moving too fast, he wants to go downfield. He throws a lot of downfield balls, and almost none of them are complete. They're either intercepted or incomplete. But Austin Mack, he loves his downfield throws. But
somebody is saying the best pass was actually thrown by Jeremy Bernard. Is that correct?
Jeremy Bernard threw a touchdown pass on a trick play to Zay Horton, and frankly, it was one of the most exciting plays of the day. I personally didn't think the throw was that great. I think Zay Horton made a great play on the ball, but it was one of the most interesting plays of the day because it was a trick play. Ty Simpson took the pass. Ty Simpson took the snap. He threw it out wide to Jeremy Bernard, who backed up, and then Jeremy Bernard threw a deep ball to Zay Horton. It ended up kind of a jump ball situation, but Zay Horton won the jump ball, as he's going to win most of those most of the time, and then he easily scored. I thought Zay Horton today was a major standout once again, and I'm ready to start hitting the exaggeration button on Zay Horton, meaning I'm ready to go pretty far and saying how good Zay. I like Germ, for instance. Germ's a good player. I think we all know Jeremy Bernard. In terms of his impact on the field this fall, I expect Isaiah Horton to be at least as impactful as Jeremy Bernard, which is a heck of a compliment as far as I'm concerned.
Germ Bernard making people sick. And then we see Ben and Travis. They asked the question: was Nico on a visit as a preferred walk-on? We will be talking about Nico at the end of this this podcast, because we got to. It's the biggest story in all of sports, if you ask me. But this comment from G-Ski, I believe, he says, "Hey, Jimmy, was Sedarian Morgan there today? He's from my school. Benjamin Russell, also where Malcolm Simmons went. By the way, G-Ski, I'm from Alex City, right? I didn't go to Benjamin Russell, but I would have had I gone to high school there. I just went to Indian Springs and lived on campus. But yeah, I'm from Alex City, G-Ski. I don't know if you knew that or not. But anyway, I think Sedarian Morgan was there. Was he not, Jimmy? And we'll talk about that in the second segment.
Yeah, I believe C.D. Morgan, or said Morgan, was there. Yes, he was scheduled to be there. My understanding, he was there. I went to the captain enshrinement ceremony, and several of the prospects were there. I did see and confirm with my own eyes. I saw Derek Zammit. I did not do the "my name is Derek Zammit" joke that Luke likes so much, but I did see Derek Zammit. And there were other prospects there, but I can't specifically confirm, hey, I saw C.D. Morgan with my own eyes, but he was supposed to be there. There was a ton of prospects there. Early in practice, right before the practice was supposed to begin, all the prospects were on the field with their families, and there was a ton of them. There's a lot of prospects. But I saw the Sabb brothers, Keon Sabb's younger brothers. I did see them. But I didn't see CD myself, but he was supposed to be there. Oh, shout out to
yeah, so we'll talk about recruiting a little bit here in the second, probably in the third segment, actually, because we're going to keep talking about what Jimmy actually saw at the A-Day itself. I mean, a lot of people have asked about the crowd. I mean, look, we've seen the pictures. Jimmy, I think we nailed it. I mean, you said there'd be fewer than 20,000. If there were 14,000 people there, I'd say okay. Any more than that, I'm not believing it.
I could be talked into that there was only 10,000. If someone swears,
did I lose you?
I can hear. If someone said there were 15,000, okay, I could believe there was 15. I won't believe that there was 20,000 if that's what Alabama said. I won't believe it. To me, I would say somewhere between 10 and 15,000, and I think either would be a good guess.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed, I guess, but I mean, we knew it was coming, right? And this is going to be a sign of the times. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Yeah, it's the format. I mean, to me, the weather was great. It was a little cool, but the weather was really nice. So it wasn't the weather. It was the format. It was not having a regular A day with Crimson versus White, and the winners getting steak and the losers getting beanies and weenies. It was the format. I think, and to some extent, last year being 9-4 and Saban being gone, I think that's a small part of it. But really, in my mind, it was the format and the fact that A-Day games are sort of going away. That's the reason. I think some people are going to use this as like evidence that there's just no excitement in the DeBoer era. That's completely unfair. That's going to be said. I know that it is. They're going to use that A-Day crowd against Alabama. But the fact of the matter is A-Day crowds or spring game crowds all over the country will be way, way below what they normally are to non-existent, and that this is a national issue. This is not an Alabama thing. It's a national issue. But I know that some people, for whatever reason, have some agenda, and they're going to use it to say that this is DeBoer. DeBoer killed A-Day. DeBoer killed the crowd. That's agenda-driven people. It's completely untrue because this same situation is being played out all over the country today and next week.
Going to talk a little TurboTax. Look, this message is from Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were ever going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All you need to do is sit back and you'll know you'll get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com, only available with TurboTax Full Live Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. What's going on here? Can you hear me, Jimmy?
I hear you fine. I hear you just fine.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if it's there we go. I don't know if we're having Wi-Fi issues or what's going on. But all right. So what about the offensive and defensive line? Some people have asked about that.
Defensive line, I watched a lot, particularly in drills, and I want to specifically point out James Smith, who was kind of a part-time participant through most of spring, but James Smith was a full go today. He looked great. I mean, to me, James Smith looks like he's ready to bust out. He is ready to play. LT Overton was great again, but I think LT Overton sort of rolls out of bed, a great player these days. I'll also say this, Keon Keeley, it's drills, not so much a scrimmage, but Keon Keeley in the drills is a completely different person to me. He's ready to be a player at this level. I think now the only issue with Keon is going to be opportunity because he's playing behind LT Overton. He's playing with Jordan Renaud. I think getting the snaps, how many snaps he plays, will be more of a function of how good LT and Jordan Renaud are. But Keon Keeley looks to me like he's ready to be an SEC football player now. His body is built for this bandit position, and Keon Keeley looked really good to me. But James Smith was a major standout to me, watching the whole of the defensive line work out, watching nothing but drills and not knowing a thing about them. I would have said watching it, 22 is the best player, 23 is second best, and that's LT Overton and James Smith. They look good. Offensive line, that's what impresses me a little bit about them. The right side is set. I mean, Parker Brailsford's the center, Jaden Roberts is at right guard, and Wilkin Formby's at right tackle, and that's pretty good, and that's sort of set. At the scrimmage, per all the reports we read, and at practice, when the media was at practice this week and today, the first team left side is Olas Elenen at left tackle and Cam Dewberry at left guard. They were out there again today. They look pretty good, and I'm sort of encouraged by the fact that Olas and Cam are really sort of holding it down on the left side, and I think those are two guys that are going to help us this fall. I think Olas is a guy that's probably making major strides. Now, when Caden Proctor comes back, Proctor's going to be the left tackle. I can promise you that. Will Olas remain the backup left tackle, or might he compete to start at left guard? because I think Olas has moved into that sort of territory where he's ready to be that guy. I think the offensive line at Alabama is going to be good. I still don't think it's what we want to be ideally. And by that, I'm not taking a shot at them. I'm not saying they're great. I think Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb and Coach Cap want this group to be better than what we're going to see this fall ultimately. But I do think overall they're pretty good. I think if you're ranking the 16 SEC offensive lines this fall, Alabama's going to be in that fourth or fifth range, fourth, fifth, sixth best offensive line in the league. Keep in mind, it's the best league in college football. But I think they'll be good. I don't think they'll be dominant.
No Serfdom. Shout out for the best name on any of our YouTube chats to date. I love, he says, I'm excited for Ty and, of course, Keelan eventually, but sure would have been nice to have Salen, I think is what he meant, in the mix. Julian saying, if we would have known, I don't know what, but anyway, but I love how he spelled Ty, Thai. He's like, I'm excited for Ty, as if he's like, I'm going to, Bangkok special for lunch. And I'm also excited about Keelan Russell. It's two things that are totally not related. But regardless, I did notice, and again, I'm having to go by what I've seen put out on social media. And I did notice that Keelan Russell had some really nice passes. One in particular to Rico Scott that was a touchdown. Yes. That was just dropped right in the bucket. I mean, a loaf of bread coming down from the second floor.
I remember the throw, actually. That was fantastic. It's one of the better throws of the whole scrimmage. Keelan had a couple of those. Just when they went to scrimmage action, when it was actual real football, 11 on 11, and Keelan was playing with backups against backups, it just wasn't as smooth and didn't go as well as you would want it to go ideally, keeping in mind he's supposed to be in high school right now.
Yeah.
He's going to be a superstar. Nothing I saw today changed my mind. Keelan Russell is going to be a superstar. It's just going to take a minute. It's not going to happen quickly. And today, again, verified to me. I mean, Ty Simpson needs to be and will be the starting quarterback on this football team. To that last comment, guy, I would say I watched Julian saying this morning. The big Ohio State spring game was on the Big Ten Network. I watched a few minutes of it before I walked across to Bryant-Denny. I thought Sand did look good, but I'll just tell you my personal expectation. This may sound crazy to some people. When you're talking about the numbers this fall, the numbers they put up, I will really be surprised if Julian Sand is any better than Ty Simpson. I mean,
I 100%. Now,
I think it would be about the same this fall. Now, long term, who's a better quarterback 5 years from now? Probably Sand. But I like Ty to be as good as Sand for right now.
Let me say this too. First of all, for those who know, I've got 3 children that are in Columbus. One is actually at Arizona State. One's going to be going to Bama next year, and one's 15. He went with his mom to the Ohio State spring game just to go do something today. And but he had never been to Ohio State Stadium, and he texted me and said, I like Bryant-Denny a lot better. I do too. I have been to Ohio State Stadium. But the thing about Julian saying, here's what's interesting, and we're going to get into this in the next segment. Ohio State is one of the teams that is linked to Nico Iamaleava. And so therefore, if that's the case, it sort of makes me feel like Julian Sayin ain't setting the world on fire. We had already heard reports of that, but I don't necessarily keep up with Ohio State that much. I find it interesting that Sayin leaves and Alabama may actually be in better position with Ty Simpson, with Keelan Russell. I mean, I'll throw Austin Mack in there, but it sure seems, and again, I'm not trying to downplay Austin Mack. Some people love him. I get it. I love him because he's on my team. I'm just saying that every report we've gotten for the most part has always been Austin Mack threw the most interceptions. That's not a good thing to hear every time somebody talks about you as a quarterback. Point being that who would have thought that losing the number one quarterback in the country may have worked out in Alabama's benefit, because we probably wouldn't have Keelan Russell.
That's totally true. People need to understand that. Had Julian Sayin stuck around and not left, the odds that Keelan Russell beat Alabama right now would be pretty slim. of that happening. So it may have worked out better for Alabama in the long run. Though, like Luke said, I'm high on Julian Sain. I think Julian Sain is going to be a good college quarterback. I've heard mixed reviews out of Columbus this spring. Some say he looks pretty good. Others aren't as sold. I'll be a little surprised if Nico ends up at Ohio State, particularly with that price tag he's rumored to have. But we'll see. I'm just saying that Julian Sain this fall, I don't suspect would be any better than Ty Simpson will be this fall. I think Ty's going to be good.
All right, we've got to talk about. I don't know why this one thing. We got to talk about the Nico situation here, Jimmy.
Sure.
But if you don't know, if you've literally been under a rock, under a larger rock, with Beats headphones on, listening to Titanic soundtrack, and you don't know this, Nico basically tried to hold Tennessee hostage, allegedly. And on 3, Pete Nakos, is that his name?
Pete
Nakos came out with a report about it. And apparently Nico's dad came out, refuted the report, called Nakos a horrible name on social media. And then Nico started sitting out practice. And now Tennessee has essentially cut him loose. He's not even on the depth chart anymore. Why does this affect Alabama? Why does this have anything to do with Locked On Bama? It could have very easily been us. It could have. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's going to be. I'm also not saying it's going to be, because this could happen to any school anywhere, and it is frightening. I in a way, I understand where Nico's coming from. When you have leverage, you're supposed to use it. That is, a business technique. You're supposed to use your leverage and get what you can. But we're also trying to live in a society. And if what's reported that Nico was making $2.5 million this next year or whatever the number is in that neighborhood, then part of me says, hey, you take this and you hope you do better, and you hope you parlay that into more money at the next level. On top of it all, for what on earth makes Nico think he's a $4 million quarterback? I guess the fact that somebody will pay it is what the smart ass answer will be. And I get that. But he ain't worth the $4 million. He just didn't. There are a lot of quarterbacks out there probably worth it. He ain't one of them, if you ask me. I mean, I've seen him play enough. I mean, frankly, Jalen Milroe played equally as well as he did last year, if not better. And people have been killing Jalen Milroe for some reason. I don't understand the infatuation with this. This is a bad move for college sports. It's not the end of college sports. I know I put it in there. I only put it in there for effect on the little thing on the side. It's not the end of college sports or whatever. But I'm looking at it like, hey, how do we stop this now? And frankly, Jimmy, when everybody initially thought, hey, players are now getting paid over the table, so much better. I think things were better when we were paying players under the table. And the reason being because the player also was bound to secrecy at that time and bound to whatever they were getting, because if they threatened to go public, guess what? They're not eligible either. So now it is a complete open market of craziness, and I'm frightened for my sport. I'm not saying it's going away. I'm just saying I'm frightened for it.
Hopefully the House settlement, if it's approved, will end some of the NIL craziness, because when the House settlement kicks in, theoretically, when that happens, if that happens, NIL is theoretically supposed to go back to what it was intended to be, legitimate payments for name, image, and likeness value, and not salary, because right now NIL is basically being treated like salary and signing bonus. And, Nico's a great example of, these players that want to play for the highest dollar amount. Like, hey, this is my goal. I want to make as much money as possible. I will play for whoever pays me the most. This is why Alabama hasn't wanted that guy on the team. And I see the criticism every day when Alabama doesn't drop the bag for this player or that player that these fans want Alabama to sign. But this is why. If you're signing a player whose sole focus or sole purpose is I want to play for the highest dollar amount, then that's what they're loyal to, the dollar, okay? And I think that's what Tennessee who was very proud of the fact, by the way, that they went and got their mercenary quarterback 2 years ago. They were quite proud of that they did that, because they're saying, wow, look how aggressive we are, and we're gonna do all it takes to win. Well, I like Alabama's approach to NIL. Both Saban, DeBoer, and Oates have all been very consistent in how they handle it, which is, we will be competitive and pay what we perceive as market value. If you want something beyond what we perceive your market value to be, then good luck somewhere else. And I like it. And Alabama wins. By the way, people get so frustrated with Alabama and NIL. Point out, this is the best Alabama basketball has ever been in the history of the school, and it's during the NIL era. So Alabama can compete and do just fine. But gosh, when you're just simply recruiting these guys that want the highest dollar amount possible, you're just signing mercenaries who are loyal to the dollar, and that's what's happened here. And I don't feel for anybody here. I think it's just the reality of business in college football these days. I don't feel bad for Tennessee. I feel a little bit bad for Tennessee's fans, because I'll tell you what, Nico's not awesome in my mind. He's not worth to be the highest paid quarterback in college football. But I'll also say this: I'll be surprised if Tennessee is able to put a quarterback on the field this fall that's as good as Nico will be this fall.
No, I agree with that. But to me, it's sort of like, again, if you want to believe the numbers on Mo Diabate, and again, I don't want to get into it, but if you want to believe the numbers, I mean, even me, as much as you and I love Mo Diabate, if those numbers are correct, I kind of get where Alabama is coming from. They're like, we're not going there.
I don't know what anybody paid him. I don't know. I just know this. Let's just say it's $1 million for him to go to. I love Mo. He shouldn't be paid $1 million to play college basketball.
I agree.
Not based on what I know the numbers are, or based on what I know. He's not $1 million player, not to me. And
look, let me tell the story, Jimmy, really quickly. All right, G-Ski may know who I'm talking about. It's an old story, but regardless, there was a guy from my hometown. He was married to one of the richest women there was, and this is years and years and years ago. And the way I was told, before my time, really, and the way I was told the story, he ultimately, divorced her. And again, this woman was one of the richest people you could be. And somebody asked him, said, "Boy, what do you gave up so much?" He goes, "After a few years, I realized it wasn't as much money as I thought." Like, she wasn't quite that rich. I mean, she was dollar wise, but there was a bunch of other stuff he had to deal with that he didn't want to deal with. And that's what I think this is sort of coming down to. This situation has done the impossible for me. It made Tennessee a sympathetic figure. I've never been Tennessee's a bigger rival than Auburn guy. I've always been Auburn's definitely a bigger rival, but I've never really liked Tennessee, especially after the Phil Fulmer stuff. And so now I'm sort of like, I even tweeted this. I go, I never thought I'd say this, but go Vols. I mean, because I think that's the only way you can play this. Now, whoever signs Nico, and if they give him $4 million, God bless you. But I'm going to tell you this. If you're going to give him $4 million, what you're telling me is you think, okay, this guy's going to win me a national championship. If you give him $4 million and your team wins 8 games, that ain't doing much.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm ranking the best quarterbacks in the country next fall, I mean, I'm not putting him in the top 15. I mean, I'm not. I mean, if he's worth 4, then what's, I mean, I don't even know exactly who I'd say. What's Arch Manning worth? And I think Arch Manning is going to be the best quarterback in college football this fall. That's what I believe will happen, although I believe that's a projection because we haven't seen the best returning quarterback in college football. Maybe it's Garrett Nussmeier. But I'd rather have Garrett Nussmeier than Nico.
Oh, by a long shot.
So what are we paying Garrett if we're paying Nico for? That's another problem with the market or resetting the market. If you do pay Nico for, then what do you have to pay these other? How can you pay Ty Simpson 1 if Nico's making 4?
Let me ask this, Jimmy, though. Let me be devil's advocate. Let me be devil's advocate for a second. And again, I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but the rumored numbers of somebody like Jackson Arnold at Auburn. I did a show on Saturday mornings with an Auburn friend of mine. And the rumors are somewhere between 2 and 3 million for Jackson Arnold that Auburn paid. If I'm Nico, I'm like, I'm better than he is.
Yep.
Now that can be debatable. I'm not trying to offend any Auburn people here. That can be debatable. But if I'm Nico, I am feeling like, okay, I'm better than that.
It would be fair for Nico to believe that. It would be fair for Nico to believe that.
The problem is, it's just like, remember when it was Les Miles' contract was like he's going to get $1 more than the coach making the most money. Well, the problem is if he does that and then another coach has that same clause, then it's just a never-ending cycle of going up. And eventually, Tennessee had to be the one, or somebody had to be the one, to stop the madness a little bit. But the only way the madness really stops is if nobody gives him the $4 million. What if Nico, here's the way this thing does kind of settle down and everybody wins. If Nico goes in open market like he does, and they're like, okay, well, now you don't have the leverage of going back to Tennessee. We're going to give you $2 million instead of the $4 million. And he's like, well, Tennessee was giving me 2.4. Yeah, but you can't go back there now. That is impossible. You can't drive through Knoxville anymore, period.
Yeah, he is going to be as unpopular in Knoxville as Lane Kiffin. But
Nico's going to be much more hated if you ask me. There's no doubt.
But I think, again, I know what you're saying. You're sympathetic to Tennessee because Tennessee did the right thing, and I agree they did the right thing by cutting him loose. I agree that's the right thing, and I applaud Tennessee for that. But I don't feel sorry for them in the sense that they're the ones that decided to get into we will be the highest bidder for the quarterback that we want. And I think they're sort of reaping what they sowed there. I mean, in terms of this is the loyalty you're going to get when it's just about the dollar.
Well, and also, Jimmy, if you're Nico and you say, okay, I want $4 million, and Tennessee goes, but wait a minute, if we pay you $4 million, we can only give our left tackle $78. So you will probably be dead anyway. Wouldn't you rather us give you 2.4 and use some of that money to help you on the offensive line and skill positions?
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't know what Tennessee paid to get George McIntyre, the 5-star true freshman that's up there, but he's from Tennessee. His family's in coaching. I bet they didn't have to break the bank to sign McIntyre. He's a 5-star that I like as a prospect every bit as much as Nico out of high school. And I bet they didn't have to break the bank to sign him. And I don't think George McIntyre would do to Tennessee what Nico did. But so that's why I don't feel sorry. But I do applaud Tennessee for sort of ending the madness, or at least, taking some of the power back from players who right now, I mean, it used to be the schools had all the power and the players sort of got screwed. That's kind of how it used to be. Well, now it's flipped. Now the players have all the power and the schools get screwed. Unfortunately, us fans, and I consider us fans, we sort of get hosed in the process too, because it's very difficult for us to fall in love with a roster that changes every 5 minutes.
Well, can you imagine?
Shout out to Cole Nolan, who I met outside the stadium at Bryant Denny, who watches the show, and thanks for stopping me and watching the show, man.
And can you imagine, though? I mean, this really does kind of break my heart a little bit, because we've all been young fans, and I mean, I remember I'll never forget driving the old Sheridan in near the Colonnade in Birmingham. They had the coolest sweatshirt. It had Cornelius Bennett number 97 and had the Grim Reaper inside of it, and that was so cool. But it was too big for me, so I didn't buy it. But I remember, just think about the kid that bought the Nico jersey that 2 years ago. And he was like, this is sort of resold. And think about the dad and the mom who've been Tennessee fans forever. They've been going through this purgatory of Nick Saban for so long. And then they finally, they're like, this guy's going to help bring us back. And the first chance Nico gets to use his leverage to say, either pay me or I'm getting the heck out of here. I don't love you as much as I think. I mean, and I'll show you how much I love you. I love you as much as you'll pay me. And then all of a sudden you got to explain all. I mean, look, Nico's not the worst person in the world. That's not the case.
Well, probably not.
But he's going to be vilified.
his agent and his folks. It's probably more his agent and his folks. But Nico, you are the face of it. You have to own this. You are an adult. You have to own this. And if there's one thing that as bad as it is of the pay me or I'll leave, two things. Apparently, Nico was shopping around before he left Tennessee, which is, questionable. But what they did to Pete Nakos at On3, what Nico's family did, defaming Pete Nakos for that story, calling him a liar, and all that, when it ended up being 100% exactly true, and they had to know it was true and called him a liar anyway. That's the way it appeared in the Twitterverse. That's pretty shameful, because
it's embarrassing. And again, it just makes. I mean, if I were an NFL GM, I would certainly take that into consideration when drafting him. I mean, GMs forgive a lot for talent, but I'm saying I would have to take some of this into account because it feels like loyalty means absolutely nothing. And it wasn't like he was getting nothing. And then NIL happened to come up this year, and he's like, "I want $4 million." Tennessee's like, "We haven't been paying you. We're not going." Tennessee was paying him more than fair market value, if you ask me.
I would argue he was dramatically overpaid as is.
Yeah, very fair. It's just it's going to be weird, Jimmy. See where this goes, and at the same time, I'm sort of like, okay, good. Maybe Tennessee will have to play another backup quarterback against us, and so I kind of dig it.
Two talented younger guys, Jake Merklinger and George McIntyre. They're very young. They're basically Austin Mack and Keelan Russell is sort of their situation. So it'll be interesting to see if they go into the portal themselves now with money to spend and see if they can't get their Ty Simpson instead of having to throw Austin Mack and Keelan Russell into the fire.
All right. Hey, man, appreciate everybody joining us live. We're going to be back tomorrow, and we'll talk more about the 8A. Jimmy will have some thoughts. He just got back, and he looks incredible for having been out in the sun like that. Y'all need to applaud Jimmy. But, all right, that's going to do it for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.